but we appreciate you. So just everyone could click the OK, and I think we're ready to go. I'll turn the attention to you, Matt.
All right, let me see. Let me pull up quickly. I'm going to share a screen. I put some pictures together. This will take just a second, and let me see how it goes. All right, got that going. Whoops, share screen. I just have to find the right one. Oh, of course, there's an update. Hold on a second.
It's all good. During the many Green Gen meetings, I've encountered possibly every awkward screen share incident possible.
Yeah, I know it's one of those things that there we go. I don't know why it says two, but hold on a second. Let me try this one more time. So my problem is I have two screens and one of them, can you guys see that okay? All right. So a little bit about myself first. My name is Matt Furmanski. I teach sculpture here at Cal State Channel Islands. I've been here since 2001, which makes next year my 20th year, if you can believe it. Teaching sculpture and art for Channel Islands. Um, uh, so I'm in this unique spot where I kind of bridge. Um, my relationship started with the island a little bit more than 10 years ago. Um, the part that I want to talk about today is really the current chapter of the island. And so, but going through pictures, putting this presentation together, I came across images from all over, and I wanted to put a couple at the beginning, just because if I'm talking about a decade relationship with the island, I wanted to show those. I also teach art and kind of creative things, and part of the collaboration with the island and the people that work out there is really important. But I also like to interject lots of kind of creative stuff. So there's a quote by a poet author named Seamus Haney, and it's one of my favorite quotes. It's "Islands too are for sculpting," and this is, of course, looking at Skunk Point from the top of Cherry Canyon, and on a nice clear day. As I said, going through my kind of experience started about 10 or 11 years ago. At that time, it was the very end of the last chapter of the island. So it was the end of the ranching and hunting days and the beginning of our current exciting chapter of the university and the Park Service. I took this picture at the top of, I think it's Arlington Springs Canyon. It was probably about 2010. This is some of a small herd of Roosevelt elk that used to wander the landscape out there. Again, going through pictures, I found lots of these. Here's a little bit, again, the kind of beginning of things. 7 horses. There were many more, and now there's not so many. As this kind of chapter came to a close, the only things that really remain there now are the remnants of that time, which kind of serve to inspire lots of things, and are really interesting from a kind of creative standpoint. And they too are slowly disappearing, but will be a part of the book that we're writing about the island. When the university got the keys to the bunkhouse and started the research station, I really jumped in. It was Santa Rosa was a place that I loved, and that I wanted to contribute to, and so I started volunteering at any chance I could to kind of be a part of putting this thing together, to letting other people experience this, faculty and especially students. It was something that was kind of important to me. I'd kind of grown up looking at these islands as many people had, and slowly exploring them in different ways. And this was a perfect opportunity to kind of bring in a really good group of scientists and artists, and just the potential was amazing. And I wanted to be a part of it in any way I could. And the easiest way was to use my skills as in construction, carpentry, and sculpture to kind of get in there and help turn this place into something that was going to be really special. These pictures, again, I think are 2011, 2012. They might have been 2013. This is a week trip out to the monkhouse to do some painting and pull apart some of the kitchen. Rahulio, who's one of our great facilities guys on campus, and his crew came out and did the painting. I volunteered and came out to pull apart the old wolf range that was there, and kind of that's me vacuuming mice nests out of it, and exploring to see what kind of shape it was in, and kind of putting in some elbow grease to kind of get it around. I think this is the end of that first weekend. We had this is the old kitchen, but in a functioning way for the kind of the beginning of getting students out there. You can still see there was an old steam tray that was part of it that's now gone, and countertops, and we have new stoves now and all of that kind of stuff. But this was kind of a fun time. I have very fond memories of doing a lot of good work out there, getting the station ready for the university, and its crews. Um, so I kind of committed to spending as much time as I could spare, which was usually a couple weekends during the year. I'm teaching full time and thinking about trying to get students out there, and then usually a week or two over the summer. And so a couple of this kind of period of volunteer work was going out and putting together. This is I would drag my family. They enjoyed it, but I would drag them out, and this is building the outside classroom and benches for it over the course of a week. And Here is the foundations for the tent cabin going in 2016. This, used to be where overflow would camp. So we would have students and faculty camping out here. And the station was able to get a hold of some funding for some great tent cabins. And I, of course, raised my hand to volunteer to go put that together, make it happen out there. Another project along those same lines that I volunteered for was putting together UTV sheds in 2018. This was a group of, I think there was 5 of us all together, and the UTVs that are out there, of course, needed some shelter from the storm. And at the time, there was a Connex box, shipping container that kind of acted as a storage unit that was filled with mice and of course Hanta and that kind of stuff. And so this was deemed necessary, and we put together over the course of 3 days a complete UTV shed. Now it was prefabricated. It had to come out in boats and be craned off and dragged up, but was kind of a fun feat to kind of get this put together. And then I think the roof was the only thing we didn't quite finish, which another crew that I believe Russ was a part of finished up later on in the next couple of weeks. Again, this whole time I'm volunteering. I'm writing IRA grants and instructionally related activities grants to try to get students out and involved. I'm thinking of ways to get a little bit of a longer term project happening. And it was I think it's the past 7 years, I've probably done well over a dozen trips with students. And again, funded through IRA, which is an amazing program. It allows, faculty to kind of put together stuff like this. IRA funds all kinds of things, but for me, it's important for getting access to the islands. So getting my students out there, exposing them to a couple of different things, the research that's going on out there, um, getting them inspired by the landscape and the natural phenomena, is all part of the kind of creative spirit that I would try to invoke and design projects around going out to the islands. And again, there is another great quote by a writer named Lawrence Durnell, that the quote is, but that is what islands are for. They are places where different destinies can meet and intersect in the full isolation of time. And it's true. Getting engineers. Oops, did I lose you?
You're good now for me at least.
Yeah, you're good, Matt. Go
All
ahead.
right. Perfect. So getting artists and scientists, and getting these different disciplines together out there to meet and see what happens is all part of the experience. This is 2017, I think, a trip with some sculpture students and Ken Neeson, who worked for the Cloud Forest project out there for several years, putting fog hats together. And Ken's an amazing botanist and naturalist. He works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife now. He was in charge of doing a lot of these fog hats, which harvested moisture from the air. And part of our trip this particular time was building them to go around saplings and fresh plantings of native and indigenous plants that would go up in the cloud forest. And so exposing the art students to that kind of stuff was incredible. I'm jumping around a tiny bit. During a lot of volunteer time that I was taking part in, I would intersect and have all kinds of conversations both on campus and off campus with Dr. Hanna, who was at the time the director of the station. And I spent a nice part of the early one summer out there scouting beaches for this potential marine debris project that Kaz was the PI for. He was putting together, and so we went around. I was working on a different project, but kind of had swooped in and finished a bunch of stuff. And I remember he came up and invited me. He said, "Hey, I'm going to spend a couple of days going out and surveying these beaches for a potential project." And we've been talking about possible collaborations for students and stuff. And so I went out and we looked at a bunch of different beaches that would be in this grant for studying marine debris that was being put together. I shot this picture on the right. Again, this is 2015. Take a look at that yellow buoy. You're going to see it again later. That Kaz is taking a picture of. So I believe this is at Sandy Point. We went all around. I got a little bit of video from a trip to Oars Camp here that was pretty incredible. These, of course, are leopard sharks that are kind of swarming through. And again, this just happened as we were looking at beaches for this potential study. There's a quote that I put in here to go along with this, and this is from Guy Gabriel Kay, who's an artist and a writer. The quote's, "Everyone knew that all islands were worlds unto themselves, that to come to an island was to come to another world." And this is absolutely true. I mean, experiencing something like this is incredible. And I'm standing, I think, ankle or shin deep in the water, taking this video of all of these sharks kind of swarming around, being social. And it's wild. So this marine debris grant got funded through both the the university, NOAA, and the National Park System. And I, again, stepped forward saying I'd like to volunteer to be on this. I have a great idea for, I had asked like what's going on with the debris after it gets processed and all of that. Might I get a hold of some? And these came from conversations that I had as this was being put together. And sure, we were just we're gonna bring it in, and then we weren't sure what to do with it. This is a picture of Sandy Point again, and this is several years after into the Marine, a couple of years, maybe a year and a half into the Marine debris grant. And that on the back of my backpack, there is that yellow buoy that Cause was taking a picture of, a couple of years earlier. The possibility to take the stuff that was part of this scientific study and turn it into art, give it to my students. Part of the way I work as an artist is to recycle materials. Humans make all kinds of stuff. We make material all day long. And so there's part of me that really enjoys reusing that material in a new way. And this kind of fit right in with some of my philosophies. So, getting in and getting this material after it had been sent through the lab and documented and everything's done from a scientific point of view, then my hands were on it and I could use it in my classes to build sculpture and do some outreach and education, for this program. I want to talk a little bit about the what it takes to get this. And I know, it's fun to look at this, and it's very romantic, as I'm sure everyone in this group loves islands too, and knows kind of what it's like to get out there. When you show this to people, everyone wants to do it. But it's a little bit like, the analogy I use is it's like a triathlon. Like it's very romantic to be a triathlete, right? To kind of master or be really good at swimming, running, and biking. But the work that goes into being good at that is insane. And when you tell people like, oh yeah, let's swim 3 miles, then let's bike 45 miles, and then let's run 13 miles, a half marathon, all in a row, most people probably say that's insane. Why would anyone spend their time doing that? But there's a group of people that will be first in line saying, sign me up. I want to do that. And that's a little bit like marine debris on Rosa. You don't pull the car up to the beach and go collect trash in a bucket. First of all, you got to get on a boat to get to the island. You got to get in a UTV, drive sometimes as many as 2 hours to a beach. And it's not to the beach that you drive. Then you got to hike several miles or an hour to the beach where there's no trail. And then hike down to the beach, lay out transects, be very diligent about protocols and collection, collect all of the stuff, and then you've got to pack it back out the same way you came in. Oftentimes, I think the Sandy Point backpack I have on here is well over 150 pounds. I probably should not have been carrying that much stuff. I remember making it to the top and feeling like I was going to throw up. And I hadn't felt that way since I was in water polo in high school, after the killer workout. And so it's a commitment. It's also a lot of fun. I'm going to take you on a quick walk through kind of the process that I just laid out. So here is a trip to, some of these pictures may not be exactly Tecolote, Cañada Tecolote, but it's like it. And so these images are of a trip a couple years, maybe a year or a summer ago. It's so hard with COVID, everything runs together now. That, first is a drive out to the site as close as a vehicle can get, which is usually several miles away. It's a long walk in, and there, as you can see, there's no trail, right? It's scrambling down, being very cognizant of the ecology that you are scrambling on and around, and getting down to, oftentimes very precipitous drops or cliff faces to a spot where you can access the beach. Once you're on the beach, it's taking GPS coordinates and laying out transects, which are, as you may know, large fields for the collection of data, and starting to collect in those transects. It's marking each transect. On these particular beaches, we have 3 different transects, and all of the specific marine debris that comes from each of those transects has to be kept separate and marked appropriately. It's staging the debris to go back up the cliff and back out to the vehicles, which means trying to figure out, you never know what's going to be down there, and you never know what you're going to be able to pack out, how many trips it's going to be, how heavy it's going to be. And so it's kind of gauge all of that stuff once you're on site. You always come across stuff on the beaches that you have to leave behind that can't be taken with you. They're too heavy, too buried. It could be anything. And so marking those, documenting them, if they're in the transects, keeping an eye on them for the next season's trip to see if they're still there, if anything's happened, is an important part of that. Again, once you've had everything staged and you got to start to bring it up, back up the cliff. And that can be quite a bit of work. For example, each of these lobster frames weighs between, I think, 35 and 45 pounds. They're solid 1-inch steel bar, welded into these rectangles. And so it's quite a lot of work. At the top of the cliff, once again, staging and packing everything up on frame packs for the hike out to where the vehicles are, which again can be a couple miles without trails. Again, here we are on the long walk out. You can kind of see, the beach in the image on the left with the 2 figures is way back around the corner over those cliffs. And this is kind of just looking back over my shoulder at people walking out. Once you get back to the vehicles, loading everything in the vehicles, strapping it down, getting it ready to head back to the station. And once it's back at the station, unpacking all the vehicles, packing all the debris into mega bags or dumpsters, and preparing them all to be exit the island via island packers or the national park boat as well. They're both on board as part of the grant system. But again, if you don't really think about all the work that goes into this, these dumpsters and mega bags don't load themselves onto the boats. They've got to be craned over and down and secured. All of this has to be done safely and efficiently. Again, lots and lots of work goes into getting the marine debris, getting the trash off these beaches. Oftentimes people ask, kind of, what are the strangest things that you've found out there? And there's all kinds of stuff that washes up. You'd be surprised. I just put a couple things in here that were in my images that I kind of liked. One of them was, I think these actually both next to were at Soledad Canyon Beach. Of course, this Keep Our Beaches Clean trash can from the American Chemical Council. Which funds it's a lobby council for petroleum manufacturers, which make plastics. And so they funded all of these trash cans to go along the beaches, but one ended up in the ocean and washed out onto the island. That's the only way it could get there, from the mainland to the island. So a little kind of funny but hurtful irony in this. One of the other cool things was this giant picnic table. You may have seen pictures of it from other people's lectures, I'm not sure, but it was amazing. We came out to this beach to do a cleanup, and this giant picnic table had washed up. It was there for several years, and then the last couple times I don't think it's been there, but it looked, by the graffiti, it looked like it'd come from somewhere around Santa Cruz, central northern California, but it's hard to tell. The summer before this, there had been lots and lots of rains and floods that washed through, and so I think it came from one of the camping beaches up there, but ended up on the island. There's this kind of fuel tank that's out on Skunk Point that is, again, a part of the military legacy of the Channel Islands and the West Coast, that kind of kicks around out there on the road to Skunk. So those are kind of some of the weird things. We've found all kinds of small, interesting things. It's just incredible what washes up. All the stuff that washes up that we can collect and bring back ends up in MODOK, gets processed through the ESRM labs to, again, create data is created from all of it for the marine debris study. And once it's processed, that's when it comes to me. And so what I do with it is I take it, it's sorted. I sort it even more usually. This is kind of a stockpile of stuff that we have. And it's just kind of all over the place. But once you start breaking it down, lighters and pens, Mylar balloons, balls, all of this stuff, this marine debris, this garbage, this trash, it's all amazing material. To a sculptor, an artist, I look at it and I see, clay or stone or steel. It's all stuff that can be molded creatively into all different kinds of stuff. And so I have some pictures of stuff that students have done with this art. So, carving buoys into tikis, or, painting on buoys to make all kinds of designs. Functional stuff like a chair swing made out of rope that was salvaged from lobster nets and fishing nets and all of that kind of stuff. Creatures made from, the caps of bottles, and again, a lot of rope that washes up. It's a big part of the haul in marine debris, and you can see, next to this pile of marine debris that kind of turned into all of this other art. We've also got buoys that are amazing to carve, and this is a dolphin skull that a student carved on the top, and she left the kind of lobster buoy on the bottom, so it was still recognizable as a piece of marine debris. So that's kind of the fun part of this whole kind of process of collection and recycling and repurposing. From all of this is from, basically, a majority of it's from Santa Rosa Island, with a few things from Santa Cruz, from the transects on Santa Cruz Island, but a majority of it's all over the last couple of years during the grant from Rosa. That's about it. I have one last quote for everybody, and it's again, this is from Lawrence Durnell, who was a writer and a poet, and the quote is, "I once found a list of diseases as yet unclassified by medical science, and among these there occurred the words Islomania, which was described as a rare but by no means unknown affliction of spirit. There are people who find islands somehow irresistible. The mere knowledge that they are on an island, a little world surrounded by the sea, fills them with an indescribable intoxication. These born Islomines are a direct descendant of the Atlanteans." Just kind of a fun quote from him. There's another great quote that, every island is a treasure island. And those are both, I hold both of those true. Every time I visit to the island, either with students or as a volunteer, all of these things go through my mind as part of it. I would love to answer some questions. thank you for being a great audience. I'm almost exactly on time. I was hoping for 30 minutes, and we're at 29 minutes and 28 seconds. I will unshare my screen if I can get it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. That was a great presentation. I love some of those pictures. Like I've heard about the elk. I know like basically the whole story, but I hadn't seen any pictures of the elk on the islands before. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's, people feel very strongly about that, and it's a part of the history. It was fun to be out there at that time. I really love the current epoch of the island, the current chapter. I think it's amazing getting to share everything out there with students and faculty and be a part of that. I could put together a whole nother lecture on that era as well. Of elk and other things out there as well. But it was a different time, and like I said, I'm happy to kind of be in that weird position of bridging those two chapters. It's fun and interesting and enjoyable.
Really great presentation, Matt. Can you unshare your screen? I'm still seeing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Right. I think yeah.
Yeah, let me see.
I figured out I can actually close it for you.
Awesome.
You did it? All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Very, very cool. I have to say that I suffer from the Islamania for sure. Have my whole life. And so,
Right.
I've never heard that quote though. That was pretty awesome. I liked that you showed the fog hats because
Yeah.
in talking about the stuff that we were working on, trying to document some of the things on the island for people virtually. Aspen and I were up in the cloud forest shooting some video a month ago, and they're going to feature prominently in a lot of these, pines that are coming back and various other things. So seeing the direct involvement of the sculpture in restoration was very, very cool. And then just a side thing, was that Ricky in the 2000, whatever that 2011, 2012, Ricky Maduro?
Yes, that was
everywhere. Yeah,
that was.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, that was Ricky. I've spent a couple trips out there with him. He's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, student, staff, long-term connected to the station on many, many different levels. So, but very cool. Neat presentation, neat encapsulation of a lot of this really cool interdisciplinary work. Do folks have questions for Matt?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, absolutely.
Did you grow up here? Did you always know the island was there? And I don't know, just learn, or did you start working at CI and then find out about the island and just kind of gung ho, I'm gonna take this over? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I grew up in Hermosa Beach, so I grew up looking out, and on most days you could see Catalina Island. On the really clear days where you have that inversion layer, you could see Santa Barbara, and you could see Anacapa and some of the other islands kind of floating up. And so ever since I can remember, I was fascinated. My dad actually had a fascination with islands. He spent many years in the Bay Area and was actually fascinated by the Farallones, and was when kind of they moved to Hermosa. Any chance that he worked a lot, but we would go out to the islands, and I have pictures from the it's probably 1981. I remember he was excited. He got a permit to go to Santa Cruz Island from the Nature Conservancy. It was $75 to get a camping permit and for a week. And we went out with it was our family and everyone else on that boat trip through. It was early Island Packers, I think. Were boar hunters. So everyone had camo gear and bows, and they went off somewhere else, and we camped in these tent cabins, which are now where the restored lagoon is. But at that time, and I was looking through a photo album, and I have all of these pictures of that trip as well. You know, and I'm 14 years old or something, or 13 years old. I can't remember. You know, running around Santa Cruz, and so we would spend a lot of time there. We went to Anacapa as a kid, and so I was fascinated by the islands from an early age. I inherited that from my dad, as well as Baja. He loved the islands off of Baja and exploring Baja. So it was, again, it was growing up doing that stuff, and just trying to find a place for it in my life, you know, whenever I could, and being lucky enough to, you know, become a professor at Cal State Channel Islands, even though I'm into art, which you might not necessarily think would be something that islands were into, but it really is, and that's part of the creativity of it, is finding a place for that.
That's awesome.
More questions?
I feel like I don't necessarily have a specific question. It's more of a comment, and also just an acknowledgement that I really want to thank you for speaking so much. I feel like a lot of what you said really kind of spoke really personally to me, just because I feel like I share a lot of the same interest in my background. Like I grew up here, I live in Santa Paula, but I was born and raised in Ventura County, and I also grew up looking out at the islands, and I'm so glad that like I ended up choosing to, of how much more of a connection I feel like I have with a sense of place of where I live. I grew up, one of my favorite authors is Scott Odell, and one of my favorite books is Island of the Blue Dolphins. And to be honest, probably one of like the first things that really connected me to, I felt so excited that there was a physical place that I felt close to that was written in a way that I felt like really got my attention, as far as like the ecologies that they described in the books. And like I also love the book The Black Pearl by Scott Odell as well. And when you talked about Baja right now, I was like, of course, like that's also, they're talking about La Paz out there as well. And my family is from Baja, so like there's just a lot of connection there that I thought was really interesting, because a lot of what you were talking about, I felt like, oh yeah, that thought process has definitely gone through my mind. And so and I was lucky enough to be the last trip out to Santa Rosa Island, and that's how I met Russ, which we talked about this the last time we met here, is that I was the last class trip before COVID hit. And so I'm so lucky that I got to go out and actually experience the islands before. I've been to Santa Cruz Island through I think there was a trip that I think the Ojai Raptor Center was putting together, and I went with them once before. And so this was my first time on Lady Rosa, and I was so excited, and I'm just so stoked. So if, I don't know, any new opportunities come to get out there, like I have like I have so many different, like I feel like I'm one of those like jack of all trades, master of none type of people, because I have so many things in my background. Like I used to do set design for theater, so like I know a lot of like labor construction. I have a lot of labor construction skills that like I don't necessarily do anymore, but like that would be interesting. Like I'm just open to helping however I possibly can with either expanding the research station, or if there's any need for it, like I'm all in. So, but thank you so much for talking about so many different, anything from like art to like literature to just expanding the research station has always just been such an, it's all like all of the things that I'm interested in have compiled into the experience for the university here.
It's great to hear that. And I aim to please, and you know, I wasn't sure of the audience, and so I put a little bit of something in for everyone. I hoped, you know, that's it's my job as a professor, right? To push everyone's buttons, but so it's all there. Yeah, no, I think it's a unique and special place. Yeah, I feel the same way. Hey, if you want to make anything out of marine debris, I've got a whole bunch.
Yeah, I might just jump on the back of Myra's comments that, you know, there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. I think the jack of all trades thing, and Matt, you probably agree with this, like, is really valuable on islands doing this kind of work. A guy I worked with on the Farallones who is brilliant and now runs his own nonprofit in Africa. He said his graduate advisor at Humboldt State told him, if you want to be a marine biologist, you need to become really good with two things. You become really good with computational statistics, and you need to learn how to fix outboard engines. And so, like, the combination of the different skills, the interdisciplinary piece. Myra, you talked about the Island of the Blue Dolphins, and we were supposed to, what would have been happening in November this year would have been what's called the California Islands Symposium, which will be happening next year at the Marriott in Ventura, which many of us are involved with, including Matt. And this is this very cool interdisciplinary conference that has, you name it, science, anthropology, art, all these elements, and is really interdisciplinary. And even though someone who's worked on islands in California, Northern California, for almost 20 years, I'd never been to one of these until the last one. And there was an incredible session, which was all about the real woman of San Nicolas, and really involved the indigenous communities and historians, and you know, it's very, 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 very powerful stuff. So that's all very cool. I have one side question in for Matt. Matt, you talked about you started at Channel Islands in 2001. So that was
academic year 2001, 2002.
So was that the very beginning? Like you must have been one of the first professors.
I was in the second, so there was 13 professors hired one year. There's 27 hired the next year. I was in that cohort of 27. I came with the very first students. The university was open for a year without students. I had applied for a position then, and the position I applied for didn't end up getting funded. They funded it the next year, and I applied and ended up getting it. And so, yeah, I came with the very first students, and I think it was academic year 2001, 2002. I could have to look back to make sure, but yeah, this is going to be my 20th year very soon.
What was it like in that first year with the very first students?
It was like teaching in there were still bars on all the windows. There was no furniture and anything. It was pitch black at night. It was fun. It was a different time. There were only a handful of students. It was Cal State Northridge at CI for a while, and then we finally got our own kind of student base. It was weird. I have another lecture about that too at some point.
I have like I'll have to look through it, but there are these really old pictures that my dad worked for a construction company for a really long time, and one of the bigger projects that they had was he worked in pipelines, and so they actually worked out at the college when they were turning it from the old state hospital into the university. And so I remember him telling me originally I was interested in going to like fine arts, and so he was like, oh, they're starting this art department at this new university. And I remember like that happening and it being an interest of mine and everything like that. But I'm pretty sure I still have some old pictures of the university barely getting constructed, and like the old courtyards and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
It was quite haunting. You could walk through everything. The Broome Library wasn't there. That was the actual hospital. They had an actual hospital on campus. So it was wild. Yeah.
So it's looking like we're getting close to 6. And I did notice that we have someone who hasn't come to a meeting before. Nick, are you out there? I just was curious if you wanted to ask any questions. Thanks for joining us tonight. Or maybe he's not. That's all right. Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Yeah, hi. Were you you're joining for the Santa Rosa committee meeting tonight?
I was, yeah. My name is Morgan. My name is Morgan. I've been involved in restoration on Santa Rosa Island for a couple decades now, and I'm one of the commissioners in the city of Long Beach for sustainable policy. So we oversee most of the city's environmental policy, and I, like all of you, dipped a toe one time on Santa Rosa Island and fell in love with her. Somebody said Lady Rosa for today for the first time. Like I'll be preaching to the choir to say how magical and like easy to beyond fall in love with Santa Rosa Island is, and it's captured me ever since. I was in the Navy, and I was stationed on San Clemente Island for a time, and went through San Nick a couple times. That's how I discovered the Channel Islands, and then all of a sudden discovered there was the ecological wonder that are the northern Channel Islands, and I've done everything I can to try and fight for them and defend them ever since. I was awesome. Involved with Truth Aquatics as well for a long time. They were my means to the island, which is a real heartbreaking story in and of itself. But now I guess it's just island packers. If you're just hopping out there now, they're the only concessioner left, right? That's my understanding.
I think so.
That's true. Thanks very much for joining us, Morgan. My name is Russ Bradley. I'm the director of the research station on Santa Rosa. And just great to have other folks from outside of our little CI bubble attending. And if you know other folks who are interested in the Channel Islands, these talks are, they're not always about Santa Rosa, but they pretty much focus on a lot of things cross disciplines that relate to work and research on the islands. Yeah, we have a few more this semester. So tell other folks who are island, island inclined. We normally do these on campus, but we are, we're going virtual this year, and that allows us to expand our reach. So we're very happy to have you.
I hope you don't mind the Zoom bomb.
No worries.
All good. It would be awesome. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
It would be, sorry, my background. It would be awesome to get a military perspective. So maybe we'll reach out and make you do one of these series.
Well, even the commanding officer on St. Nick or San Clemente, it's coordinated out of San Diego. But I can definitely put you in touch with the current commanding officer. And they would even know more than I would. And they do this kind of, they have they get points when they do good PR stuff. So I'll just kind of weigh in them on that end, and it's a Zoom. What's a Zoom for an hour, but to that point is that the Navy has very, very, very active conservation policies, and a whole set of very specific policies about San Nicolas Island and San Clemente. The bases are not zero impact yet. They are working to get them there. Naturally, San Nicolas is part of the Pacific Missile Defense System, so its strategic importance is like crazy. And I didn't do anything crazy in the Navy. I was in IT, but they do some really insane stuff on San Nicolas. But the base on San Clemente has actually been chosen by the Navy to try to be a model of sustainability. They're not there yet, but their intention is at least real, which is cool.
Awesome.
Morgan, have you worked with William Hoyer or Bill Hoyer? Do you know that name at all out there?
Yeah, he's the biologist on San Nick.
Yeah.
That name, Bill Hoyer, does sound very familiar. I can't place him, but that name does ring a bell.
I was just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, we work closely with him at the station and through involvement mostly with this organization that looks at plants and botany issues across the California islands. But yeah, they are. There's a lot of stuff going on in San Nicolas. I was supposed to go out there a year ago and spend a couple days with Bill and look at a bunch of different projects, but the Navy really cracked down on non-Navy folks and non-folks who are on a specific contract out there. So I couldn't get out there, but hoping to. And yeah, there's incredible stuff. There's recovering, they reintroduced sea otters to Santa Rosa. There are elephant seal populations that are going through the roof. There's a lot of really neat things happening on the military islands. So thanks for Yeah, thanks for bringing that perspective, and yeah, feel free to attend these in the future.
I'll be here.
I just wanted to say that our next meeting was going to be next Thursday, and we were going to have Alice and Chris knows. I don't know what her last name is.
Alvarado. She's the ornithology professor at Channel Islands, as well as she's going to be talking about her work on San Clemente. So that might be interesting to kind of hear her side of it as a biologist. And then maybe if we can orchestrate something in the future with the Navy, I think that would be awesome. We'd love to get in contact.
My love is Santa Rosa, but naturally San Clemente and San Nick being, Navy bases, that's that a whole different other kind of allure. But you won't find anything like Santa Rosa. San Clemente is not nearly as ecologically impressive as San Clemente is not as restored as Santa Rosa. So when you actually get to San Clemente, for instance, it's kind of disappointing. You can really see the effects of goat and sheep grazing and no effort to restore it. And then on San Nick, it's a lot like Santa Barbara, which it's just too small to sustain any kind of real ecosystem. And it was quarried by the Chumash Indians. So it's much like Anacapa. Once you get there, it's rad, a bunch of birds, cool. But about a half hour through, you're like, oh, where's the rest of the island? and it's and there is more to it, all of them, but they're just so hard. It's so cliff laden. It's just hard to really explore. But Santa Rosa is where it's at.
Well, fantastic.
Did you say that the next meeting was next Thursday on the 22nd, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doubled up that day.
Sorry, the dates got mixed up.
It's okay. I'm like, I'm gonna have to miss that one because it's a Green Gen meeting date.
I'll be rolling from this one into that one on that day, probably.
Oh, is it not at the same time? Oh no, because it's from 5 to 6. Okay, got it. Oh, maybe I can do that. Okay. But yeah, no, that's super interesting, Morgan. I feel like I think, and I've mentioned this probably at the last committee meeting, but there's the Santa Cruz Island Foundation has the All 8 Club. I think it's a part of their foundation, but like it's essentially the only requirement to be a member of that club is just that you have had to set foot on all 8 of the Channel Islands. And at some point, I really want to do it, but I mean, of course, because of the military restrictions, there's not very much. So if we could have like the CSUCI have a military connection there, maybe we can make that happen. But
you can walk up on the beach on San Clemente and San Nick. You just have to go in. You can't land. You have to go in the water and swim up.
Oh, got it. Okay.
If you do that and you don't stay long, you're all right. But if you land a boat, it's a problem.
Right.
Matt, how many of the Channel Islands have you been on?
I haven't been to the military islands. I would love to go. And I still have to make it to, I haven't been to as many as I would like. I've been around almost all of them on a boat, fishing, or kind of gone at, just as Morgan was saying, up shallow or into the shallows. So I've been around all of them that way, but I haven't set foot. I would like to spend the night on all of them one night. I know that it's the Grateful 8 club that you're talking of, and there's some island packers captains that call it. They have their own. It's called the Magnificent 7, and it's all of the Channel Islands except for Catalina because it doesn't count. And it's kind of a casting some shade on Catalina, and so if you visited all of them except for Catalina, you're in this other echelon.
The far side of Catalina can be really cool. Shark Cove. There's a painted cave a couple miles up from the harbor there. but yeah, Catalina is bougie these days.
I'd learned to dive. I got certified in 1983 at Toyon Bay on Catalina, and so it has a very special place in my heart, Catalina Island Marine Institute. But yeah, there are plenty of people in that island community that look sideways at it.
So I have a question for Russ, actually, but with the research station, I know Santa Rosa is the focal point and where the research station is. Is there any sort of talk about maybe working with the National Park System to research some of the other islands as well?
For sure. So we are involved in some collaborative projects with folks working across the islands, and some of these collaboratives like the ICBC, we have a meeting tomorrow. I'll see Bill Hoyer then, which is it's the Islands of the California Botanical Cooperative. So we collaborate with a bunch of folks there. We do some stuff directly on Santa Cruz, as Matt mentioned, for the Marine Debris Project. We also have been involved in collaborative projects and even supporting and funding internships on projects and data related to other islands. Like we funded a biology student last year who was involved with the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, where there was a postdoc who was doing this whole insect inventory of San Clemente. And they had a huge amount of samples. And so we're definitely for things in terms of supporting student research and supporting internships that are Channel Islands related. We're up to do that. We've been trying for a while, and I'm hope when COVID winds up, go through, we want to create an internship to help the National Park Service and associated partners with their island biosecurity program. So there's this is, like the, biosecurity issues related to island transport. And there's one person who's split between the Navy and the park. And it's still a relatively new thing in this area. So I'm hoping to create more of a partnership there that we could potentially have capstone students and fund internships there. And so that is a much larger issue that applies across the island. So the short answer, the short version of that long-winded answer is yes. We are not purely Santa Rosa focused. And even though that is our main hub, we're very interested in collaborations across the islands and helping to create opportunities for research for undergrads and transformational experiences and education where we can. So yes, there's so many islands, there's so much going on, there's so many players. That's the difference for me coming from working on the Farallones for 17 years, where there's no public access. It's one nonprofit. It was the gateway for everything. There's so many folks doing so many things here, which is why I encourage everyone to kind of reach out and see all those different efforts of all those organizations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, fantastic. Well, seeing as how it's 6:09, I think this might be the end of the meeting. Russ, was there any news you might want to depart with anyone?
I said some of that stuff on the get-go. We actually have trips to the island coming up, which is crazy town, in a very limited, very controlled, again, fashion. There's a lot of work that's being done with the university to do to be able to make some of this happen for very limited support of research and some very limited reduced density things with class trips. And a lot of that is really evaluating this whole transition with, we don't know what conditions are going to happen and such, and we want to support as much as we can through virtual means. But one of our big goals is charting the course to what comes next. And it's not going to be a light switch. It's not going to be a binary stage shift, just going from 0 to, all right, we're rolling full steam in the spring. We know that's not going to happen. So yeah, we're starting down the path of that, working through all the channels at the university and the Park Service. And we should hopefully have more virtual content and such coming along. And we just really thank and supportive of Chris and Mia and the student committee for, keeping this series going on. Matt and some of the other folks in art, we are talking about virtual art show that we might try to do for spring. So there's more things coming basically, and we will definitely keep this committee informed, and our social media, Instagram, keep going, and website, other updates. So we'll let you know as new things develop.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank
Matt,
you.
for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks,
good
Matt.
night,
night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Morgan, for coming. Thanks,
Thanks everyone
everybody.
for coming.
So Thursday next week.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The
5
22nd is
p.m.
Thursday,
22nd.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Great job.
Thanks.
Hopefully class and everything's going well. Week 8. We're almost done. Halfway.
Yeah.
Dying, but yeah.
All right. Have a
Good
good
luck.
night.
Yeah. Good luck with
Bye.
school
You
too,
too.
Aspen.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.